Harper caught her fiancé in bed with her best friend. Cole's business partner stole everything and destroyed his reputation. Both escaped to the same remote cabin in the mountains, and then the biggest blizzard in 50 years hit. Trapped together with no way out, two people who swore they'd never trust anyone again discovered that sometimes healing comes from the most unexpected places. Harper Ellis had imagined her Saturday 1,000 different ways. Walking down the aisle in her grandmother's dress, saying vows to the man she'd loved for 3 years, dancing at her reception while her best friend gave a tearful maid of honor speech. What she hadn't imagined was walking into her apartment to grab her veil and finding her fiancé in their bed with that same best friend. The image was seared into her brain. Madison's blonde hair spread across Harper's pillows. Ryan's hand on Madison's back. The way they'd scrambled apart when the door opened. Faces frozen in identical expressions of guilt. Harper, I can explain. She hadn't let him explain. Hadn't screamed or cried or thrown things, though she'd wanted to do all three. She'd simply taken off her engagement ring, set it on the dresser, and walked out. That was 5 days ago. Now Harper sat in a rental car at the base of a mountain, staring at her GPS and wondering if running away to a remote cabin was brilliant or insane. Probably both. The cabin had been a last-minute find, a cancellation on a vacation rental site available for 2 weeks starting immediately. Remote, isolated, no cell service except at a specific spot near the property. Perfect for someone who wanted to disappear from the world and all the concerned texts and calls and the goddamn wedding gifts that kept arriving at her parents' house. You need to deal with this, her mother had said. Running away won't help. Maybe not. But staying felt impossible. Every corner of her life was contaminated. Her apartment, where Ryan still had keys. Her job, where coworkers whispered about the canceled wedding. Her phone, full of messages from people who didn't know what to say. So she'd packed a bag, loaded her camera equipment, and driven 6 hours into the Colorado mountains. She'd take photos of snow and pine trees. She'd drink wine by the fire. She'd figure out how to put her life back together without the two people she'd trusted most. The road to the cabin was treacherous, winding up the mountain through increasingly heavy snow. By the time Harper pulled into the small clearing, her fingers ached from gripping the steering wheel, and the sky had turned an ominous gray. The cabin was exactly what she needed. Small, rustic, surrounded by towering pines. A curl of smoke rose from the chimney. Wait. Smoke? Harper frowned, checking the rental confirmation on her phone. Blackwood Cabin, December 15, 29th. Reservation confirmed. This was definitely the right place. So why was there smoke coming from the chimney? She climbed out of the car, boots crunching in the fresh snow, and approached the cabin with growing unease. Maybe the caretaker had started a fire for her arrival. Maybe it was residual from a previous guest. Maybe she was about to walk into a horror movie. Harper pushed open the front door and stopped cold. A man stood by the fireplace, tall and dark-haired and looking at her like she was the intruder. He wore an expensive sweater and held a glass of whiskey, and his eyes, steel gray and sharp as blades, raked over her with obvious irritation. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. "Who the hell are you?" Harper shot back. "This is my cabin. I have reservation." "So do I." He set down his whiskey and pulled out his phone, showing her a screen. Blackwood Cabin. December 15, 29. Confirmed 3 days ago. Harper's stomach dropped. She pulled out her own phone, showing him her identical confirmation. Blackwood Cabin. December 15, 29. Confirmed 5 days ago. They stared at each other, then at the phones, then at each other again. "There's been a mistake," Harper said. "Obviously." His voice dripped with disdain. "I'll call the rental company. Good luck with that. There's no cell service up here. I'm aware. There's a spot near the property line where you can get a signal. I'll drive down. He grabbed his coat and pushed past her, close enough that she caught a whiff of expensive cologne and whiskey. She heard his car start, heard the tires crunch in the snow, heard him drive away. Harper looked around the cabin. It was nice, she had to admit. A single large room with a kitchen area, a comfortable seating space around the fire, and a loft bedroom accessible by a wooden ladder. Cozy dough. Intimate. Absolutely not big enough for two people who clearly couldn't stand each other. She was unpacking her camera bag when she heard it, a sound that made her blood run cold. An engine revving, tires spinning, and then a crash. Harper ran outside to find the man's SUV tilted into a ditch at the edge of the clearing, wheels spinning uselessly against ice. "Are you okay?" she called out. He emerged from the driver's seat, looking murderous. "The road's iced over. I couldn't even make it to the end of the driveway." As if to emphasize his words, the sky opened up. Snow began falling in thick, heavy sheets, the kind that meant business. Within seconds, Harper could barely see the cabin. "We need to get inside," she said. "Now." They made it back to the cabin just as the wind picked up, slamming the door behind them. Through the window, Harper watched the world disappear into white. "Well," she said, "I hope you weren't planning on going anywhere." The man, she still didn't know his name, stared out the window with an expression of pure defeat. "Neither of us is going anywhere," he said, "for a very long time." The first night was brutal, not because of the storm, though that was bad enough. The wind howled like something alive, rattling the windows and making the cabin creak. Snow piled up against the door in drifts that would take hours to dig through. No, the brutal part was being trapped in a small space with someone who clearly wanted her gone as much as she wanted him gone. His name was Cole, she'd learned. Cole Ashford. The name had tickled something in her memory, but she couldn't place it. He'd offered no further information, and she hadn't asked. They divided the cabin in an unspoken agreement. She took the loft bedroom, ladies first, he'd said with a sardonic edge that made her want to throw something at him. He took the couch by the fire. They'd found enough food in the pantry for several days, and divided that too, cooking separate meals, eating in pointed silence. "This is ridiculous," Harper finally said on the second morning, watching him make coffee without offering her any. "I agree. If you'd like to hike out through 4 feet of snow, be my guest. I meant us. Treating each other like enemies. We're stuck here together, we might as well be civil." Cole turned, coffee mug in hand, and fixed her with those gray eyes. "I came here to be alone." "You're interfering with that. So are you." "I didn't exactly plan a roommate." "Then we can be alone together." In silence, he walked past her to the couch, pulled out a laptop, and proceeded to ignore her existence. Harper lasted exactly 4 hours before the silence drove her insane. She was a photographer. She'd spent weeks alone in remote locations, waiting for the perfect shot. But there was a difference between chosen solitude and forced confinement with someone who radiated hostility like a space heater. She grabbed her camera and started shooting. The cabin interior, the frost patterns on the windows, the way the firelight caught the worn edges of the wooden beams. Photography had always been her escape. Behind the lens, the world made sense. She could frame it, control it, capture the beauty even in chaos. "What are you doing?" Cole's voice made her jump. He was watching her from the couch, laptop forgotten. "Working. Some of us have jobs." "You're a photographer?" "Travel photographer." "Freelance." Something flickered in his expression. Interest, maybe. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual coldness. The lights better by the east window. In the afternoon, around 3, the sun hits the ice on the pines. Might make a good shot. Harper blinked. How do you know that? I've been here before. Years ago. He looked away. Different circumstances. It was the first personal thing he'd said. Harper wanted to ask more, but his walls had already slammed back up. She went to the east window at 3 o'clock anyway. He was right. The light was stunning. That night, something shifted. Maybe it was the wine Harper found in the pantry. Maybe it was the way the storm had intensified, making the cabin feel like a ship in an angry sea. Maybe it was just the human need for connection, even with a stranger who didn't seem to want it. I was supposed to get married last week. The words came out before Harper could stop them. She was sitting by the fire, on her second glass of wine, and Cole was pretending to read a book that he hadn't turned a page over. He looked up. Supposed to? I caught my fiancé in bed with my best friend, 5 days before the wedding. Silence. Then, that explains the running. Excuse me. You have the look of someone running from something. I recognize it. He set down his book. I have the same look. What are you running from? Cole was quiet for a long moment. The fire crackled. The wind howled. Harper thought he wasn't going to answer. My business partner stole $30 million from our company. Then, he set me up to take the fall. Cole's voice was flat, emotionless. By the time the truth came out, my reputation was destroyed. My face was on every tabloid. Everyone I thought I could trust had either betrayed me or believed the worst of me without question. Harper suddenly remembered where she'd seen him. The news coverage, months ago. Tech CEO accused of embezzlement. Then, quieter, the retraction. Charges dropped. Real culprit arrested. But the damage was done. I'm sorry, she said. I remember seeing that. I'm sorry, she said. I remember seeing that. The coverage was brutal. It was deserved. Not the accusations, but the isolation. I spent years building walls, trusting no one, and the moment someone found a crack, everything fell apart. He laughed bitterly. My business partner was supposed to be my best friend. Known him since college. I would have trusted him with my life. And he betrayed you. Just like your fiancé. Just like your best friend. Cole met her eyes. We're both here because we trusted the wrong people. Maybe we were always going to end up somewhere like this. Harper didn't know what to say. She'd expected to hate this man, this cold, brooding stranger who'd invaded her solitude. Instead, she found herself seeing a reflection of her own pain. How do you do it? She asked quietly. Move forward when everyone you trusted turned out to be a lie? I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. He poured himself more whiskey. That's why I'm here, hoping the answer would come to me in the silence. And instead you got me. Instead, I got you. For the first time, his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, but wasn't a frown either. Maybe that's an answer too. Just not the one I expected. They sat in silence after that, but it was a different kind of silence. Shared, rather than divided. Two broken people in a cabin in the snow, both wondering if healing was possible. Day 4 of the blizzard, and Harper was starting to think she might actually like Cole Ashford. It had happened gradually. Small things at first. He made coffee for both of them now, without being asked. She cooked dinner for 2 instead of 1. They'd developed a rhythm, a routine, the kind that only forms when 2 people are forced into close quarters. They talked more too. Not about their pasts, those wounds were still too fresh, but about everything else. Books they'd read, places they'd traveled, opinions on increasingly absurd topics. Pineapple on pizza is an abomination, Cole declared. Pineapple on pizza is delicious, and you're wrong. This is why I have trust issues. Harper laughed. Actually laughed, for the first time since finding Ryan and Madison together. The sound surprised her. Cole noticed. His expression softened in a way that made her heart do something complicated. You should laugh more, he said quietly. It suits you. Haven't had much to laugh about lately. I know the feeling. They were standing in the kitchen, close enough that she could see the flecks of blue in his gray eyes, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off his body in the cold cabin. Cole, she started. A gust of wind slammed against the cabin, making them both jump. The lights flickered, once, twice, and then went out. The generator, Cole said, already moving toward the door. It must have been overwhelmed by the storm. I need to check it. I'll come with you. Harper, it's dangerous out there. It's more dangerous to go alone. 2 pairs of eyes are better than 1. He looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her expression stopped him. Fine art die tine. Bundle ut. Dot. The generator shed is about 50 feet from the cabin. 50 feet had never felt so far. The storm was a living thing, clawing at them with frozen fingers. Harper could barely see Cole, even though he was right beside her, one hand gripping hers to keep them together. They found the generator shed and stumbled inside, gasping. The machine sat silent, coated in ice. The fuel line's frozen, Cole said, examining it with numb fingers. We need to warm it up before we can restart it. They worked together, hands shaking from cold, breathing on the frozen parts, and trying to thaw them enough to function. It took an hour of Harper's toes going numb, of Cole's lips turning blue, of the storm raging just outside their tiny shelter. But, finally, the generator sputtered to life. We did it, Harper breathed. We did it, Cole agreed. They looked at each other in the dim light of the shed, both exhausted and frozen, and somehow triumphant. And then, without either of them planning it, they were kissing. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was desperate and hungry, the kind of kiss that happens when 2 people have been holding back for too long. Harper's frozen hands found his coat, pulling him closer. His arms wrapped around her like he was afraid she'd disappear. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back in. We should get back to the cabin, Cole said, his voice rough. Yeah, we should. They didn't talk about the kiss on the trek back. Didn't talk about it as they shed their frozen clothes and huddled by the fire that Cole rebuilt with shaking hands. Didn't talk about it as the feeling slowly returned to their extremities. But Harper couldn't stop thinking about it. The way he tasted, whiskey and something sweeter. The way his hands had felt in her hair. The way, for just a moment, she'd forgotten to be guarded. That was a mistake, Cole said finally, staring into the fire. I shouldn't have. It wasn't a mistake. He looked at her, surprised. Maybe the timing was wrong, Harper continued. Maybe we're both too broken to be doing this, but it wasn't a mistake. It was the first thing that's felt real in a very long time. Harper. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I'm not good at this. Relationships. Feelings. I have a history of hurting people, even when I don't mean to. And I have a history of trusting people who don't deserve it. We're both disasters. She moved closer to him, close enough that she could see the conflict in his eyes. But I'm tired of being afraid. I spent 3 years with someone who made me feel safe, and it was all a lie. Maybe safe isn't what I need. Maybe I need someone who's as scared as I am. I'm terrified, Cole admitted, of wanting something again, of letting someone in, of ending up back where I started. So am I. Harper took his hand. But I'd rather be terrified with you than numb alone. He looked at their joined hands for a long moment. Then he pulled her close, tucking her against his chest. We take this slow, he said. No promises, no expectations, just seeing what happens. Slow, Harper agreed, even as her heart raced. I can do slow. They sat like that until the fire burned down to embers. Two broken people holding each other in the darkness, both wondering if this was the beginning of healing, or just another way to get hurt. Slow, as it turned out, lasted about 48 hours. By day 6, they'd abandoned any pretense of distance. They cooked together, ate together, spent hours talking by the fire. Cole moved from the couch to the loft, and neither of them pretended it was about practicality. "Tell me about your photography," he said one afternoon, watching her sort through images on her laptop. "It started as a hobby, something to do when I couldn't sit still." Harper pulled up a photo of a sunset over an African savanna. "Then a magazine bought one of my pictures, and I realized I could do this for real. Travel the world, capture moments, actually get paid for it." "And the fiancé? Did he support that?" Harper's jaw tightened. Ryan thought photography was fine as a hobby. He wanted me to quit traveling, settle down, be available. I tried to explain that traveling was my job, not just something I did for fun. He never really understood. His loss. Easy to say now. Harder to believe when the person you love keeps implying your passion is an inconvenience. Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled up something on his phone and handed it to her. It was a news article from 6 months ago. Ashford Industries CEO resigns amid scandal. Next to it was Cole's photo. Younger, harder, the face of someone who hadn't yet been broken. "I built that company from nothing," he said. 10 years of my life. Relationships I sacrificed, experiences I missed, all because I was building something that mattered. And then Derek, he shook his head. The money wasn't even what hurt most. It was that he let me believe he was my brother, my family. And the whole time, he was just waiting for his moment. "How did you find out?" "His girlfriend turned him in. She found evidence on his computer and brought it to the FBI. Cole laughed bitterly. The only honest person in the whole situation was someone I'd never even met. So, the charges were dropped. Eventually. But by then, everyone had made up their minds. The board forced me out. Investors vanished. Friends stopped calling." He took the phone back, staring at his own face. "I had everything, and then I had nothing. And the worst part is, I still don't know how I missed it. How I trusted someone so completely who was lying to my face." "Because you wanted to believe in him," Harper said softly. "That's not a weakness. That's being human." It felt like weakness. Everything feels like weakness when you're hurting. Cole looked at her, and Harper saw something crack in his carefully maintained facade. Vulnerability. The kind he'd been hiding since she met him. "How are you so understanding?" he asked. "I've been terrible to you since we met. Cold and hostile and scared. Just like me." Harper moved closer. "I recognize the defense mechanisms, Cole. I have all the same ones." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're remarkable, you know that? I'm a mess. A remarkable mess. The best kind." He kissed her then, slow and thorough, the kind of kiss that made her forget everything except this moment, this man, this impossible connection. When they broke apart, Harper made a decision. "I want to show you something." She grabbed her camera and pulled up a series of photos she'd never shown anyone. "Not Ryan, not Madison, not even the magazines. These are from a village in Nepal," she said. "I was there for a magazine assignment, but these were just for me." The assignment was about landscapes, tourist destinations. But I kept seeing these faces. This woman who lost her husband in an avalanche but still smiled when she talked about him. This kid who had nothing but shared his lunch with me. These monks who spent their lives in meditation and radiated more peace than anyone I've ever met. Cole scrolled through the images slowly. "These are incredible. They're real. Raw. Not what magazines want, but B. They're mine. The photos I'm proudest of. Why haven't you published them? Because Ryan said they weren't commercial. Because they don't fit what I'm supposed to shoot. Because showing them feels like showing too much of myself. You should share them. Cole looked at her seriously. These deserve to be seen, Harper. You deserve to be seen. Something warm bloomed in her chest. Not just attraction, though that was there too. Something deeper. The feeling of being truly seen by another person. You know what? She said. Maybe I will. The storm started to ease that night. Harper stood at the window watching the snow fall gently instead of violently, and felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that they'd survived. Fear of what came next. And underneath it all, a desperate wish that this didn't have to end. Roads should be clear in a day or two, Cole said, coming up behind her. The weather forecast on the emergency radio said the worst has passed, so we can leave. We can leave. They stood in silence, neither of them saying what they were both thinking. That leaving meant going back to reality. That reality didn't have room for whatever this was. That they'd both come here to be alone, and now alone was the last thing either of them wanted. What happens when we get back? Harper asked quietly. I don't know. Cole wrapped his arms around her from behind. I just know I don't want this to end. Neither do I. So we don't let it. He turned her to face him. I know we said no promises, but I'm making one anyway. Whatever happens when we leave this cabin, I want to keep finding out who we are together. No running. No hiding. Just trying. That's terrifying. The most terrifying thing I've ever done. He smiled, and it transformed his face. Not the guarded half-smile she'd grown used to, but something real. Something bright. Are you in? Harper thought about everything she'd lost. Everything she'd survived. Everything she'd found in the most unexpected place. I'm in, she said. All the way. He kissed her as the snow continued to fall, as the storm faded into memory, as two broken people found something neither of them had been looking for. The day they left the cabin, Harper's phone exploded with messages. Most were from her family, worried, relieved, asking where she'd been. A few were from co-workers. And 3 were from Ryan, each more desperate than the last. Harper, please. We needed to talk. I made a mistake. I know that. But what we had was real. Madison meant nothing. Please just call me. Harper stared at the messages, waiting to feel something. Anger. Hurt. Doubt. Longing. Anything. Instead, she felt nothing. Like reading about a stranger's problems. Everything okay? Cole asked, loading the last of their bags into his newly excavated SUV. My ex wants to talk, and I deleted his number. Harper slipped her phone into her pocket. I don't have anything to say to him, not anymore. Cole's expression softened. He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I have to go back to New York, he said. There's still a company to rebuild, a reputation to salvage. It won't be easy, I know. Come with me. Harper's heart stuttered. What? Come with me? Not permanently, not yet. But there's a photography exhibition in the city next month. I know some people who would love your nipple series. And He took a breath. I don't want to do this next part alone. The rebuilding. I've done alone for too long. I have my own life to rebuild, work to figure out. A canceled wedding to deal with. I know. But you could figure it out in New York as easily as anywhere else. He took her hands. I'm not asking you to move in with me or make any big decisions. I'm asking you to take a chance. See if what we found in this cabin can survive outside of it. Harper thought about her empty apartment back home, the memories in every corner, the job that suddenly felt smaller than her dreams. Then she thought about Cole, about the way he saw her, really saw her, about the possibility of something new. 1 month, she said. I'll come for 1 month. After that, we reassess. 1 month. Cole grinned. I can work with 1 month. 1 month turned into 2. Then 3. Harper's nipple photos were featured in a prestigious gallery show that Cole had quietly arranged without telling her. The night of the opening, she stood in a room full of people who couldn't stop talking about her work and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride died. Real earned pride. They love them, Zoe said, having flown in for the occasion. Harper, this is incredible. I can't believe it's real. It's real. Zoe glanced across the room to where Cole was charming a group of art collectors. So is he, by the way. That man looks at you like you hung the moon. He's good at looking. He's good at more than looking. He's good at making you happy. Zoe took her hand. I know you were scared after Ryan. I know trusting someone again felt impossible. But I've never seen you like this, Harper. You're glowing. I feel like myself again. Maybe more than myself. Like I'm finally becoming who I was supposed to be. That's love, babe. The real kind. Later that night, after the gallery had emptied and the caterers had packed up, Harper and Cole stood alone among her photographs. I have something for you, Cole said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. If this is a check for the photos, I told you I don't want your money. It's not a check. He handed her the envelope. Open it. Inside were 2 plane tickets and a photograph. The cabin, their cabin, in summer instead of winter. I bought it, Cole said. The cabin. I couldn't stand the thought of it being someone else's. That's where everything changed for me, for us. You bought the cabin? I figured we could use it for getaways, anniversaries, whenever we need to remember where we started. He paused. If you want. If we're going to have anniversaries. If. Harper kissed him, cutting off his rambling. I want, she said against his lips, all of it. The cabin, the anniversaries, the terrifying, wonderful future with you. Yeah? Yeah? She pulled back, smiling. You know what I thought the first time I saw you? In the cabin, when you were glaring at me like I'd personally ruined your life. What? That you were the most annoyingly attractive person I had ever wanted to punch. Cole laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound Harper had ever heard. And now? He asked. Now you're just the most attractive person I've ever loved. The word hung between them. She hadn't said it before. Neither of them had, both too afraid of what it meant. But it was true. Had been true for longer than she wanted to admit. I love you too, Cole said quietly. I think I have since you argued with me about pizza toppings. Maybe even before. We're disasters, you know. Both of us. The best kind of disasters. The kind that crash into each other and somehow make something beautiful. He pulled her close, and they stood there in the gallery, surrounded by photographs of Harper's favorite moments, creating a new one. The storm had brought them together. But love, real, hard-won, terrifying love, was what made them stay. And that was the most beautiful thing either of them had ever found. 1 year later, they were back at the cabin. Not for an emergency this time. Not because either of them was running. Just because it was Christmas and this was where their story had started. The cabin looked different in December without the blizzard. Peaceful. The snow fell gently, covering the pines like powdered sugar, and smoke curled from the chimney. Because this time, Cole had gotten there first to set everything up. I still can't believe you bought this place, Harper said, watching him carry in the last of their bags. I still can't believe you agreed to spend Christmas in the middle of nowhere with me again. Lightning doesn't strike twice. We probably won't get snowed in this time. Disappointment, Cole said with mock gravity. I had plans for being snowed in. Harper laughed, and the sound echoed through the cabin like music. So much had changed in a year. Cole had rebuilt his company, not the same company, but something new, something that reflected who he'd become. Smaller, more focused on doing good instead of just doing business. The scandal was yesterday's news, replaced by headlines about second chances and redemption. Harper had launched her own photography brand, focused on the raw, real images she'd always been afraid to share. Her work was in galleries now, in magazines that celebrated authenticity over polish. She'd even done a TEDx talk about finding your voice after betrayal. She'd also finally cleared out her old apartment, packed up the remnants of her life with Ryan, and donated everything to charity. It had felt like shedding a skin she'd outgrown. "I have something for you," Cole said, once they were settled by the fire. "You always have something for me. I told you to stop buying me things. This one you'll like. I promise." He handed her a wrapped box. Inside was a leather-bound photo album filled with pictures from their year together. The gallery opening, their first real vacation, a trip to Iceland where they'd chased the northern lights, random moments from their life, captured when she wasn't looking. "You've been taking pictures," Harper said, her voice thick. "You taught me that moments matter. I wanted to remember all of them." She flipped through the pages, tears blurring her vision. There was one of her laughing at something off camera, one of them on the beach at sunset, one of her sleeping soft and peaceful in their bed. "This is beautiful," she whispered. "There's one more." He turned to the last page. There was a photograph of the cabin, this cabin, in winter, and beneath it, in Cole's handwriting, where it started, where I found myself, where I want to spend the rest of my life, with you. And taped to the page was a ring. Harper's heart stopped. She looked up at Cole, who had somehow ended up on one knee without her noticing. "A year ago, I walked into this cabin, hating the world and everyone in it," he said. "Then you showed up, and you hated me right back, and somehow that was the best thing that ever happened to me." Harper laughed through her tears. "You taught me that trust doesn't mean never getting hurt. It means choosing to believe anyway. You taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone worth the risk." He took her hand. "Harper Ellis, you're my risk. My reward. My home. Will you marry me?" She didn't even have to think about it. "Yes," she said. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger. Simple, elegant, perfect. And then he was kissing her, and she was laughing. And outside the snow continued to fall like it had a year ago, when two strangers had crashed into each other's lives. "I love you," Cole said against her lips. "I love you too. Even if you still think pineapple on pizza is wrong. I'm learning to compromise. That's all I ask." They spent Christmas in the cabin, just the two of them, making new memories in the place where everything had changed. They cooked together and drank wine by the fire and talked about the future, where they'd live, what they'd build, whether they wanted kids. "I never thought I'd want this," Cole admitted. "A family. Someone to come home to. I thought I was too damaged for it. We're both damaged. That's what makes us work." Harper curled into his side. "We know what it costs to trust. We don't take it for granted. No, we don't." On Christmas morning, they stood at the same window where Harper had watched the storm fade a year ago. The snow was gentle now, peaceful, the world covered in white like a fresh start. "Thank you," Harper said quietly. "For what?" "For being the unexpected thing I needed. For showing me that what I lost wasn't the end. It was just making room for something better." Cole pressed a kiss to her temple. "Thank you for being brave enough to let me in. For seeing past my walls. For choosing to stay." "Always," she said. "I'll always choose to stay." The cabin had been a refuge for two broken people running from the world. Now it was something different. a symbol of hope, a reminder that the worst moments of your life can lead to the best. A place where two strangers had become everything to each other. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, wrapped in each other's arms, Harper and Cole watched it together. This was where their story had started. But it was far from the end. The end